Hi all, welcome. Actually, this video will be the recap of the interview questions we saw from 10th October to 16th October, the JavaScript interview questions. So just these are the questions we saw from in those time, in the 7 days. These are the questions we saw. Okay, let's see them. So the question is, what is a constructor in JavaScript? And does JavaScript has a constructor? This is the question, right? Before answer, just understanding the answer, I just want you to understand in Java or any native languages, what is a constructor? We have in most of the native languages, right? We have a class, right? So in that class, we have a constructor. This constructor is responsible for creating the object in the class, right? This is how we used to do it in Java, right? We have this is called as a constructor. The ABC will be called as a constructor, right? Because this is responsible for creating the object, right? And we put a new operator and ABC, and that creates an object out of this constructor, whatever you told. Maybe we say this dot A equal to 10, this dot B equal to 5. So these are all instance variables for that class, right? So this is about Java and other native language. In case of JavaScript, we don't have a class, right? Then why this constructor is required? And does it have a constructor in JavaScript? Yes, in JavaScript there is a constructor. So in case of JavaScript, you know what is the object in JavaScript? It is just key value pass. So that object can be also be created out of a function. That function is called as a constructor function in JavaScript. Any function which creates a object in JavaScript is called as a constructor function. So, and let me show you. Let me create a simple function here. Okay. So function. Okay. And inside the function, I will have two instance variables, right? A of 10, B of 20, something, right? Let us make it simple. And let me assign it to a variable. And this one point you have to remember in this case, right? Yes, a function which is used for creating an object, okay, we capitalize. This is a normal convention in JavaScript. The function which is used for creating an object, which is called as a constructor function, we capitalize. This is a normal convention. It is not like if you keep it as lowercase, will it fail? No, it is not functionality. It is just a convention to differentiate with normal functions. Okay. Now, how to create an object using this function? In JavaScript also, we have a new operator which we can use for creating an object. Okay. If you do it like this, it will return an object out of this function. Other thing you have to remember is whenever you create a new operator and call this function, this operator will be a empty object. I will also show you this. This operator will be a empty object. Okay. Okay. And whatever you do after this statement, it will be like adding the variables, adding a and b inside that empty object. So remember, whenever you call a function with new operator, that function's this will be a empty object, and over that empty object you can add whatever you want, add whatever variables you want. Okay, instance variables in this case. Okay, let me try to do this and show you. Okay, before doing that, I just want you to understand what is the difference between the object created normally we used to do and through a constructor function. Is there any difference? So let me I'm just creating an object here, object 1, and let me initialize it directly as a key value pass. Now let me create it using this function. Okay, let me have it as object 2, right? So you can see here this operator is a empty object. That's what it gets printed. Now let's try to print object 2. So what is the value? It is the same object. When you do it as key value pass directly, it just is another way of creating the same object. There is no difference between the object 1 you created directly using the flower braces and you created through a function. It gives the same, it is the same object. But now we are creating using a function which is called as a constructor function. Okay. And other one thing I want you to understand is likewise here, likewise in native languages, the constructor function can also have arguments like this. Okay, can also have arguments like this, and while calling that function with new ABC, you can pass the value to that argument. Okay, this will also work. Okay, I can show you this. Maybe object 3. Object 3, if you print, it will be the same thing. But now instead of having empty arguments, now I am passing two arguments, a comma b. Okay. Hope you understood this. So just be it very clear, JavaScript has a constructor. Okay. In case of JavaScript, constructor is just a function which creates the object. Okay. It is a function which creates an object instead of native languages where we have this constructor function inside a class. In case of JavaScript, it is a simple function which is used for creating an object using that new operator. Okay, which is in JavaScript. So what is a higher order function? Okay, what is a higher order function, and give some examples. That's the question. So before understanding this question, I want you to understand what is a function in JavaScript. Function in a JavaScript, as I told you, other than primitives, all are objects in JavaScript. So function is also a object in JavaScript. Okay, if you take a function, let me put assign it. Okay, like fun equal to something function. Okay, now to prove that function is an object, okay, in JavaScript the function is called as function object. Okay, you can treat a function as an object. You can assign it to a variable, you can send it as a parameter to another function, return the function as well. That is also possible. That's why it is called as first class objects. That is also, they call it as first class objects. To prove that function is an object, you see func is a function. If you want, you can also assign a variable to it. So this proves that this is an object because we can assign a variable. You can assign something to a object only. Okay, this proves that it is a function, it is an object. Okay, understand? This is proves that this is an object because you will see there is a function object in JavaScript. Okay, you can also do function dot prototype as well. You have something called function dot prototype as well in JavaScript. Okay, So hope you understood. Function is called as first class objects in JavaScript. It is also called as function objects. Okay, it is a object. So whatever you can do with the object, you can do it the same in JavaScript. You can assign it to a variable, send it as a parameter to another function, or return it as well. Okay. Now coming to the question. Okay. What is higher order function? Okay. The higher order function, if you take, it is nothing but a function that receives the function as argument or returns a function as the output. Okay, you understand this definition? A higher order function is a function which receives function as an argument and or sends or returns the function as an output. Okay, so in simple terms, you can say if I have a func1, okay, func1, okay, let me have a func2 which states in the argument. Okay, which takes some argument. Okay, func as a argument. Okay, and console log the func. Whatever you sent, it is going to print it out. So this func2 takes the function as an argument and tries to print the function. Okay, now sorry, I made a mistake. Mistake here. It is a function, right? Okay, now let me call the func2 with the argument as func1. Okay, now you can see it prints out the function. So now this function is called as higher order function because it takes function as a argument. You understand? Yeah, a higher order function you can also return the function. You can either it should take a function as argument or return a function. In either case, it is called as higher order function. Okay, understood? Okay. So this is as simple as that. This is called as higher order function. So in JavaScript, every function is a higher order function because it is capable of taking function as argument and returning a function as a output. Okay. And the examples, what are the built-in higher order function? Okay. The built-in higher order function is, you would have heard of map, reduce and filter, which is available in array. All these are built-in higher order function because it takes in a function as an argument. Okay, the map actually takes in a function. Okay, function as an argument. Likewise, reduce also takes in a function as an argument. Filter also the same. Okay, so these are all built-in higher order functions. Okay, so let us see the question 24 of this series. So it is a very important question. Is there inheritance in JavaScript? So many think there is no inheritance, right? Because as we would have seen in classical is class inheriting another class, right? Class A you would have seen extends B, right? That's how a class inherits another class. But since there is no class in JavaScript, many think, right, there is no inheritance, right? How come the inheritance is possible? So there are so many of those questions prevail or have doubts. Okay, but in JavaScript, if you take, there is no classical inheritance. Okay, since there is no class, there is no classical. A class never inherits from another class. But in case of JavaScript, it is completely different. It is a object inheriting from another object. It is going to be a prototypical inheritance. Okay, understand the difference? Understand the difference? It is prototypical. That is, your object inheriting. I stress on it more. Your object inheriting another object. Okay. So how come it is possible? How to make an object inherit from another object? Let me show you. Okay. Let us take a object 1, object 2, and we will see how object 1 inherits from object 2, right? That's will be our aim, right? Let me, I think I already did something. So let me take, object 1, okay? This is object 1, and let this be object 2, okay? Okay, this is object 2. Now I want the object 1 to access the properties in object 2. Okay, right now the object 1 can access only A and B, right? A and B, if I am correct, right? It cannot access C. I am not able to access also the C. But how to make it possible to access the object 2 values? It is only possible through inheritance. That is by setting up a prototype chain. So for that, what we have to do? We have to set the proto of object 1 as object 2, right? So to in the object 1, in the proto, I have set object 2. That is what I have done. In the prototype chain of object 1, I have added object 2. Okay. Now if you see, the object 1 will be able to access the value of C as well, because we have added the object 2 to its prototype chain. That is, we have added object 2 to its proto. Okay. What really JavaScript engine does is, first it will access its own properties, that is object 1 properties. Then it will look in the prototype chain of object 1, that is object 2. Okay. Fine. Let me show it how we can do it. So this is the prototype chain. Right now what we have done to object 1, right? We have in to objects 1 proto, we have set object 2, right? Right. Now what the compiler will do? First it will check if you are trying to access a value of C. If it will check in object 1 whether the values are present. If it is not present, it will go to its proto. Right now we have set the proto to object 2. So it will check in object 2 value whether the whatever you ask for is present in object 2. If it is not there also, it will go to the proto of object 2. Okay. That is maybe object 3. Likewise, it will go till object.prototype, because every object inherits from object, and it will end with object.prototype. Understand? So this is called as the prototype chain. Okay. So if you want an object to inherit from some other object, what you have to do? You have to set the proto of that object pointing to the object you want to inherit from. Okay, and it will go on, and the object you inherited from to its proto, that also will be available to object 1. So right now object 1 will be able to access object 2, object 3, and so on. Okay, let me add object 3 also. Let object 3 equal to maybe d of 40, right? D of 40 I will set. Now I will add it to object 2. Okay, object 2's proto I am setting to object 3. So now I have set a prototype chain similar to this, right? So now the object 1 will be able to access the D value also, which is available in object 3, right? Because of the prototype chain. In its prototype chain, object 3 is present. Okay. Hope this is clear. Okay. Hope this is clear. So we have seen two interview questions about inheritance and also about the prototype chain. Now we try to inherit a object from another object. We can set the prototype to a constructor function also, because it will not make sense to add the prototype to a normal function. So let me add it to the constructor function. Okay. So let it be a function. I will set this dot a, this dot b, 10, this dot b equal to 20. Okay. So since it is a constructor function, I have capitalized it. The first letter is capital. Okay. Now for object we saw we are setting dot underscore proto. For functions, constructor function, what you have to do? We have to set it maybe I will create an object from which it has to inherit from. Okay. Maybe C of 100. Okay. Now for in case of functions, if you want to add inheritance, you have to do prototype. Okay. And you have to set to the object you want it to be inherited from. So now what is the use of adding like this, right? So whatever object you create out of the constructor function, that object's prototype will be set to object 4. You understand? Whatever objects we create out of ABCs, that prototype chain will be set to object 4. So that's what we can achieve from this. Okay. Because constructor function is used for creating objects. If you want to set the proto for all the objects created out of this constructor function, you can do it in this way. If I create an object out of this constructor function, maybe name it let object 5. Okay, maybe. This is not defined. Okay, I think I made a mistake here. Here you can see I have made it. Okay, now I have to reinitialize ABC, right? So let me make it this. That's why I'm not able to call that. Okay, now I create a function object out of the function. Okay, now if you see the object 5's proto will be already set because we have set the prototype to the constructor function. So it will be already set to object 4. Okay. One second. Let me clear it. I'm not getting it. Let me do that again. So let us make it maybe we see this dot something. Let me set a prototype for this constructor function. Let me create an object. Let obj sits equal to C of 200. Okay. Now let me set the prototype object to this constructor function and I will assign it to object sets, right? Now I have assigned. Now let me create the object out of this constructor function and have it as constructor object. Okay. Now this constructor object will have its prototype set to this object sets. Will have the its proto set to object sets, because to the constructor function we have assigned the prototype already. So the any object which is created of the out of the constructor function will have its proto set accordingly. Okay. So now let's check the proto. Now you can see, right? The proto is set to object sets. Now you can, using this, you can get the values of object sets, that is C, right? Okay. Hope this is clear. Okay. When you assign the prototype to constructor function, what happens is the object which is created out of the constructor function will have its proto assigned already based on what you have set it in the prototype of the constructor function. Okay. So other thing I wanted to tell you is a number will inherit from its number dot prototype. Like similarly, string from string dot prototype, array from array dot prototype, and a object from object dot prototype. Okay. What I am trying to say is a number. Okay. Let me create a b equal to number of 5 maybe. This b, okay. You have seen many properties, right? Many methods. The properties comes from number dot prototype. Whatever you are seeing for number, it is coming from here. Likewise, string, any string object will have its methods from string dot prototype. Similarly for array, similarly for boolean as well. So string dot prototype. From this is where it gets the properties methods from. Okay. So string, if you see its prototype chain, it will be string dot prototype, and then object dot prototype. The object dot prototype will also have all the methods which are common for all the objects. Okay. So any object in JavaScript will have all these values, because object is the last one, right? Has own properties, prototype of, toString of, value of. Okay. Fine. So I'm very happy to share with you question 25 in this series. And today's question is something which I came to know only recently. Okay, maybe many people would have thought, may have wondered how it works, but let us see today how it works actually. So in JavaScript, in if condition, different data types work. You know that we already saw in one of the interview questions, one means true, truthy value, zero means falsy value, and all those, right? How the JavaScript interprets one as true and zero as false. How this happens? Because you can, in the inside the if condition, you can put any data type. You can put an array, you can put an object, anything you can put, right? You can put a NaN or a null or undefined, anything you can put. But how JavaScript, because you know in a if condition only boolean will work, true or false only will work. How this value becomes converted to true or false, a boolean value, so that the JavaScript can execute the if condition statement. So we will see today. So we all know this, right? If of one means it is true, so it means true, and it will execute whatever it is inside the if condition. And likewise for array and empty array and empty object is all true. But if you have a empty string, it means false. So the whatever you have put inside the if condition will not execute. Likewise for 0 and nan, null and undefined. So let us see how JavaScript evaluates this one as a boolean true, so that it is able to execute the statements available inside the if statement. Okay, so it is very simple. Okay, what really happens, it is very simple. So what it does is, okay, whatever you put inside the if statement, it tries to convert as boolean. If you put boolean of 1, if you give a value 1 inside if statement, it converts it into a boolean and it is true. So it executes that statement. Likewise for this empty object true, empty empty object, okay, empty object, previously it was array, it is true, and if you put empty string it will be false. So you need not by heart what will be the value for the statements or for the data types you give inside the if statement. You can very well do a boolean of that value to find out what will be the boolean value of the data type, the value you provide inside the if statement, right? Boolean of nan is false. Okay, likewise boolean of null, undefined, and the boolean of 0, right? That is also false. So this only happens actually, this concept is called type cohesion. So the JavaScript converts into its boolean value, whatever you value provide inside the if statement, it does a boolean type cohesion to a boolean value so that it can execute the condition. Okay, evaluate the condition. This step. So today we'll be seeing question 26 of this series, and today's question is, what is duck typing? Let me give you a context of this before jumping into the definition. Okay. Yeah. In case of languages like Java or C++, if you want to make an object look like a duck, right? That is, you want to substitute this object in place of duck so that you can call the methods of duck, like maybe a quack and walk. If you want to do it in that way, what you need to do is, only way you can do it is, you have to make the duck and the other object A maybe, implement the common interface, right? Common interface of duck and the other object, so that the compiler will allow you to call the quack and walk on the on your other object, because both duck and your other object implement the same common interface which has the quack and walk, so it will allow you to execute the methods on the object. This is called as strongly type. You are more concerned about the type so that you can call the methods, right? Quack and walk. But in case of JavaScript, we don't have such a strong type. It is not such a strong type language. So in JavaScript, if you want to make a object look like a duck, it is enough that you have just the methods quack and walk in the object. That is enough. Okay, you need not have the same. It need not have the same type, or it need not inherit from the other object. Nothing like that. That is not needed. It is enough that it has the quack and walk object in it. Okay, so that is called duck typing. Okay, so let's move into the definition. So normally what they used to say is, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. So what they mean is, if it has a method of walk. If it has a method walk and quack of a duck, then it is a duck. Okay. So in case of duck typing, it is more concerned about what it can do and by not by what it is actually. Okay. It is more concerned about the methods and operations available in it rather than what class and what type it is. Okay. This is called duck typing, right? Hope this is clear for you all. Okay. Let's see a simple example. So consider I have a duck object. I have walk, quack in it. Okay. If I want to have some animal look like a duck, I just need to add these two methods, walk and quack in it. Okay. And if I have a check whether it is a duck object, it is a duck object because it has a walk. It has a walk of which is walk. I have a value assigned to it, let's, and it has a quack function. Then it is a duck. Okay. So obviously these two check will return as true. Now this has become the some animal has become a duck by just having the walk and quack methods in it. Walk property and quack methods in it. So that's how it is so simple. Okay, this is called as duck typing. Just by introducing the methods, you are making it look like a duck. Okay. In case of JavaScript, a very common example which is built in is the iterator. Okay. To make iterable object, to make any object as an iterable object in JavaScript, it is just enough to have the iterator key, iterator function available in your object. That is more than enough. If you have just that defined, okay, in your object, then this can be called as iterable object in JavaScript. Okay, we will see in detail maybe in the next question how we can make any object as a iterable object. Okay, but just for now you just understand it is a duck typed because just by having the iterable iterator or function implemented in your object, it becomes a iterable object. Iterable, it can be called as a iterable. But if you compare it with Java and C++, there you might have seen it has to implement a iterator interface. Then only it can be called as a iterable object. But in case of JavaScript, just by having that method, iterable, iterator method in your object, it can be called as iterable object and it can be used in the for loop as well. So, so let us see the question 27 of this series, how to make an object as iterable in JavaScript. Iterable, I mean, it can be used in a for loop to iterate through the values. Okay, that's what I mean iterable. So there are two conditions to it. So the iterable object should have the it should have the iterator key set. This is the first condition. Okay, the iterator key you can get it through symbol.iterator. Okay, so with the introduction of symbol, you can get this unique value using symbol.iterator. Okay, and to this key, what you have to set is iterator object. Okay, the iterator object is so the iterator object is through this object only the for loops tries to retrieve the value one by one. So it provides a sequence and I will show you a MDN. Okay, so the iterator object is nothing but a sequence, provides a sequence, and also it provides a way to find out whether it has terminated. So the iterator object will, it has to have a next method which the if loop will call each time to retrieve the value. So the next method should return two values. It should return an object with these two values, value and done. What is the value for this, for that loop? And done is to signify the for loop whether it has some more values or not. So if it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first will be value of 1 and done false. Then 2 false, 3 false, 4 false, 5 false, and at last once there is no more value, the value will be undefined and done will be true. Okay, you understand? So this iterator, by this means of this iterator, only the for loops is able to get the value sequentially one by one by calling the next method. Okay, and it also comes to know whether it has terminated by making use of this done thing. Okay, fine. So these are two conditions. Let's see example now. So here you can see very clearly, right? It has a, this is my object. I want to make it a iterable. So for that I'm just setting this symbol.iterator to a function which returns. That's what I would have mentioned here, there. So this is first condition, and the second condition is the symbol.iterator should be assigned to a function which returns a iterator. Iterator we saw, right? What is iterator? So the condition is symbol.iterator should be set to a function which returns a iterator. Just understand that. Okay, function which returns a iterator. Okay. Now this iterable 3, you can see that we are trying to set this iterator to a function which returns a iterator. This is the iterator here. Okay, you can see here. This is the iterator. Okay, so the iterator, as I told you, should have a next method which the for loop calls each time, and it should be written in two values, value and done. Value and done. So the condition is till the I reaches 5. Okay, we are sending the value of 5 and saying done false. Once it goes beyond 5, we are saying uh, it has no more values by saying value undefined and done true. So once the for loop receives this value, it will stop the loop. You understand? Okay, just to make iterable, two conditions. The first one, setting the iterator to a function which returns a iterator object. Hope this is clear. Okay, you can also do it more simply using a generator function. You can set the symbol.iterator to a generator function. Okay, the generator function, what it will do is, on calling the generator function, it will it will create a iterator out of it. That's the significance of a generator function. It will create a generator. It will create a iterator out of the generator function when it is called. Okay, this is the iterator function. So it is more simple. Okay, fine. So for generator, I will create a one separate video on this. So for now, understand that to the symbol.iterator, you can also assign a generator function with the star with it. And on calling the generator function, because what on calling the generator function, it will be able to return a iterator, which will be used by the for loop to iterate through. Okay. The next is inbuilt iterables. So these are array, string, map, set are all inbuilt iterables in JavaScript, because if you see in that prototype you will be able to see the symbol dot iterator set, okay, which provides the iterable capabilities. Okay, I'll just show you in I'll show you here. If you see array dot prototype, you will be able to get the symbol dot iterator. Okay, you can see it is already defined. Since this is defined, it is a iterable in JavaScript. Okay, likewise for string also. So if in any object, if you have this defined, it becomes a iterable automatically. String dot iterator defined. Okay. Likewise for set, map, everything. Just that. Since it is a iterator. So generally, what is a generator? Okay. You have to understand, if asked in interview, generator function is different, generator is different. So the generator function, okay, you put a star, okay, to denote it is a generator function. So the generator function when called returns a generator, which is a special type of iterator which you can use in a for loop or for any iterative behavior. Okay, so over the iterator, actually the next is called each time to retrieve the value. Okay, as in the case of iterator, we keep on calling next. In a for loop, this is what happens. It calls next, huh, till there is no value or done becomes true. So it follows the iterator protocol. Okay, because generator is a special type of iterator. Okay, so each time you call a next, yeah, the generator will execute the function till a yield. Okay, once yield is executed, it will pass the execution and return back whatever the value is being provided in the yield. Okay, so this happens till there is no yield in that generator function. Generator function, yes, right. So we will quickly see example for you to understand what I am trying to say. Okay. So let me first create a generator function. Okay. How to create a generator function is simple. So it is a gen function. Okay. Generator function is different. Kindly understand, generator function is different. Generator is different. Generator is iterator. Okay. So now I am creating a generator function. So I need to denote it as a generator function. I have to put star after it, and I have to run it, right? So in this generator function, I want to just give out three values, okay? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, just I want to give three values. I will just put a console log, okay, so that you understand better. Yield 1. So the similarly I will put for before all that. Okay, yield 2 and yield 3. Okay. So if you execute this gen function, right? If I execute this gen function, if I execute this generator function, what I get it back is a iterator. Okay, iterator or generator. Generator, it gives back a generator which is a special type of iterator. Okay, over this you can call the next function. what happens in your for loop to retrieve the value from that generator. Okay, generator. I'll put gen. Okay, okay. I will say it as generator. Okay, I will do a console log here. Let's see what is there in that. Okay, let's run it and see what happens. Mm, it is saying gen func is not defined. Maybe I named it wrongly. Sorry. Okay, now let's execute it. So you can see it is a generator. This the value present in this is a generator, which is a special type of iterator. Okay, just understand difference. Generator function when you call it gives a generator which is iterator. You can use it. Maybe I will just show you. Let me do a next of it. This is what happens with a for loop. Okay, dot next, and I will put a console log here. Okay, maybe I will say first value. Okay, let me try to run it now. See, first value came as 1 because we have yielded 1, and it also print this is going to yield. So when you do a next in a generator, what happens is it will execute all the statement till that yield statement. Okay, and it will return the value. Okay, whatever you yielded, that will be returned as value, and it will execute all the statement till the yield. Understand, yield is something which will pass the execution and give back the control. Okay, if I do it again, right, what happens, you see, if I this is second value, so it will since it passed here, it will also execute this one and give you 2 value 2. Okay, let us also do third value. Okay, if you execute this one, you see what happens. See, all the value came now going to yield. So when you do a next, wherever it passed the execution, it will restart here and it will execute till the next yield, and it will return whatever in the value is yielded, that will be returned in value. Okay, so that's what is here. Okay, if you see here, if you do again, right, what will happen is value will become undefined and done will become true. Okay, this is the same thing which happens. Okay, generator actually follows the iteration protocol. So what it will do, done will become true and value will become undefined. If you see the fourth value, see, done true, and so it will not be further yield on this. Okay, so by this only the for loop understands that is there is no more value in this. Okay, so one thing you have to understand, once the gen function is completed, you can't use the generator. You have to recreate the generator again from the generator function. Okay, let me okay, what I will do, I will comment it and let me use this in a for loop. Let I in generator. You can't use a generator directly, generator function directly. You have to take the generator out of the generator function to use in any iteration, like for loop or maybe you are spreading whatever you're doing. You have to do it only after this. Okay, now this also you will try to execute. We'll see 1, 2, 3 should be executing for us, right? Mhm. And so you can see it here. So when you use a for loop, it is able to print 1, 2, and 3. Okay. The first return will be, it is like a return generate yield is like a return statement of generator. So but normally once it return you can't go back to the function, but yield it will just pass the execution return back. Next when you call the next, it will again resume the execution and give back till the next yield. Okay, you can see it here. You can also use it in a maybe like this, like in a spreading operator as well. Okay, 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 you can see that 1, 2, and 3 got printed because uh, this is been written. When you do like this, it will call the next in, i- inside it will call the next, so that it is able to get you the value. Okay, so this is about yield, okay, generator function. So the one thing you need to understand is generator function is different, generator is different. Generator function once called gives you the generator, which is a iterator, which can be directly used in any iteration operation. And how the iteration happens is by calling the next. Once you give the next, it will give the value in the yield. Okay, it will execute till the yield and pass the execution give back. When another next is called, it will resume the execution and execute till the next yield. Okay, and give you the value which is provided in the yield. Okay, so this is a simple example, and also understand generator function is denoted by giving a star. Then if you don't specify the star, it is not a generator function.